watching the Debka File, a weekly roundup of exclusive news, insight, and analysis of the Middle East, broadcast to you live from the heart of the region. Coming up on the program today, terror attack in Offa leaves a mother and baby in critical condition. IDF uncovers a third Hezbollah terror tunnel. Lebanese banking faces U.S. sanctions. Russia moves an S-300 battalion opposite U.S. Al-Tanaf base. El-Sisi builds a new Egyptian capital in the desert. And now to our top headlines. Surgeons delivered the baby of a 21-year-old pregnant woman by cesarean section overnight while operating on the gunshot wounds of the mother sustained in a Palestinian drive-by shooting Sunday night at the Ofra bus stop in Binyamin, Samaria. The baby's condition is said to have declined overnight as doctors are trying to stabilize the mother's condition. 2 of the 7 people injured in the attack were seriously hurt. One of them was her husband, who was evacuated to Shaarei Tzedek Hospital in Jerusalem. The others, mostly teens, suffered slight injuries.
ערב פיגוע טרור חמור, כולנו מתפללים לשלומה של אם צעירה שנאבקת על חייה. תינוקה ניצל, ואנחנו גם מאחלים החלמה מהירה לכל הפצועים. אנחנו לא נשקוט עד שנמצא את הפושעים המרצחים הללו ונמצא איתם את הדין.
On Monday morning, IDF troops and the Shin Bet were still searching after the terrorists. At least 2 were seen in the car. Overnight forces combed through the nearby village of Silwad, east of Ramallah. According to Debka, the IDF and Shin Bet suspect that the attack may have been the work of the fugitive terrorist who in October murdered Ziv Hajbi from Rishon LeZion and Kim Levin-Gond Yecheskel from Rosh Ha'ain in the Balkan industrial area. The killer, a 23-year-old Ashraf Nalwa from Shweika village near Tulkarm, has not been apprehended and is believed to be planning to continue his terrorist rampage against Israeli targets. Nearly a week into Israel's Operation Northern Shield, and the IDF has uncovered 3 Hezbollah cross-border terror tunnels so far on the Israeli side of the Blue Line, and knows about several more. The first tunnel, exposed last Sunday, starts in the Lebanese village of Kila and continues under the border to Metula, Israel's northernmost town, just a few hundred meters away. A second tunnel runs from Balida village towards the Naphtali Hills, and a third from the Lebanese side to Moshav Dovev north of Tzfat. The IDF has not crossed into the border into Lebanon as of yet.
These cross-border terror tunnels were built by Hezbollah with direct support and funding from Iran. They were built with one purpose in mind: to attack and murder innocent Israeli men, women, and children. This is a grave violation of Israel's sovereignty and a gross violation of UN Security Council Resolution 1701. It is an unacceptable act of wanton aggression.
אנחנו כרגע פועלים בשטחנו, והעובדה הזאת מאפשרת לנו מרחב פעולה רחב מצד אחד. מצד שני צריך לזכור, חיזבאללה מפר את החלטה 1701 באופן ברור, הוא חופר מכפר קילה לשטח ישראל. הוא בונה תשתיות צבאיות בתוך הכפרים השיעים מדרום לליטני. הוא מחזיק פה ארגון סביבתי שבעצם מהווה ארגון של תצפיות של ארגון חיזבאללה. הוא מוכיח לכולם שצבא לבנון, ממשלת לבנון, לא שולטים בשטח. מי ששולט זה ארגון הטרור חיזבאללה.
The operation is currently taking place along the nearly 80-kilometer border from Metula to the western Galilee. Soldiers are grouped in between earth-moving trucks in areas where more tunnels have been marked out. On Sunday, Israel's Armed Forces Chief Gadi Eisenkot met with the head of the Lebanon-based UN peacekeeping force, UNIFIL Major General Stefano Del Col, at IDF headquarters in Tel Aviv. According to Debka, Eisenkot tried to persuade Del Col to order his forces to go into the villages of South Lebanon and destroy the Hezbollah tunnels. This is a request that the IDF had previously made to Del Col. On Thursday, the general received detailed information on the Hezbollah tunnels excavated in South Lebanon village from the IDF's OC Northern Command Major General Yoel Strik, who delivered a strong protest against Hezbollah's violations of UNSC Resolution 1701 by digging the terror tunnels under the border. He provided him with an aerial photo of a tunnel running from the Lebanese village of Ramaya up to Moshav Dovev in the western Galilee. In turn, on Friday, Del Col asked Lebanese Chief General Joseph Aoun to allow his inspectors to enter the southern Lebanese villages and verify Israel's complaint that they house the starts of cross-border tunnels. On Monday, the UNIFIL chief got a cynical reply to his request from the Lebanese Chief of Staff, General Joseph Aoun, informed UNIFIL Major General Stefano Del Col, sure, you can inspect villages suspected of harboring tunnels and we will even escort you, but first, send us the full details of Israel's plans of the operation. The international monitors are precluded from entering these villages without Lebanese army consent and escort. According to Debka, while the international monitors may well put on a show of exposing a tunnel, they do not have the engineering capacity for destroying it. In the meantime, the IDF is continuing its operation on the Israeli side of the border, but is preparing the groundwork to move the operation to the Lebanese side should the need arise. The operation is currently safeguarded by large-scale military forces standing opposite the Hezbollah forces placed on the Lebanese side of the border.
Very happy to see you. We chose this day on purpose for sightseeing or for sight not seeing. Because what you're going to have to imagine, and we'll talk about it inside, is what if Hezbollah chose to attack us through the tunnels on a day like this? Our aircraft can't fly. Our ground forces can hardly see anything above ground, but something they can see. But underground, they come in and invade our territory, breach our sovereignty, and violate UN Security Council Resolution 1701. This is a perfect day to illustrate that.
According to Debka, Hezbollah has placed its forces on combat readiness in 9 regions of southern Lebanon. It has not mobilized its reserves, but has canceled leaves in all its military units and placed them at the ready for action, including the organization's Southern Command at Ma'arub, whose 7,000 troops were moved north up to the Litani River. What remains to be seen is whether or not UNIFIL and the Lebanese army will comply with Israel's request, and if not, whether the IDF will be forced to move its campaign into the Lebanese side. While so far, other than an isolated incident on Saturday, which saw the IDF fire into the air to scare off 3 Hezbollah agents who made their way close to the border, there has been relative calm. Should Israel need to move to the final stage of the operation into Lebanon, Hezbollah is preparing to ensure this takes place under heavy fire. The U.S. has decided to crack down on Lebanese banks who are among the most powerful in the Middle East. According to Debka, Beirut banks have long, however, served as a backdoor for helping Iran avoid U.S. sanctions, serving its Revolutionary Guard and Hezbollah as a laundering and smuggling outlet. The banks are able to claim these transactions were legal by disowning any contacts with the sanctioned entities and instead opening personal accounts for individuals to conceal the flow of illicit Hezbollah and Iran Revolutionary Guard funds. According to Debka sources, when Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu met with U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo in Brussels last week, Netanyahu provided the U.S. Secretary of State a list of Iranian and Lebanese private citizens with accounts in Lebanese banks who are suspected of being fronts for Iran Revolutionary Guard and Hezbollah. Netanyahu also provided financial transactions over the past 6 months suspected of being payouts to pro-Iranian Shiite militias serving Tehran in Syria and Iraq. Additionally, Israel provided a list consisting of U.S. weapons supplied to the Lebanese army and passed on to active Hezbollah units in Syria and Lebanon in the past 2 years. All this information was provided to the U.S. in addition to a rundown of the terror tunnels in Lebanon and Hezbollah's violation of UNSC Resolution 1701. Debka sources report that after reviewing the files, Washington ordered 2 immediate steps. The first is support for Israel's military operation to uncover and destroy Hezbollah tunnels, and the second, the U.S. issued a strong warning to Lebanese President Michel Aoun to discontinue the ties he and the Lebanese National Army maintain with Hezbollah, failing which the Trump administration said it will impose tough sanctions on the Lebanese economy. Specifically, the U.S. told President Aoun that he must direct Lebanese banks to close the accounts of clients with links to Iran's Revolutionary Guard or Hezbollah. Those clients will be added to files on individuals already under sanction for ties with Iran. Additionally, U.S. arms aid to the Lebanese army is to be discontinued until such time as proof is provided to new arrangements for preventing them passing into the hands of Hezbollah. And with regards to UNIFIL, the U.S. said it must start dealing with violations of UNSC Resolution 1701, or else Washington will halt appropriations for its operation, effectively ending its mission. Debka sources reveal that the ultimatum was delivered by U.S. Ambassador Elizabeth Richard to President Aoun following Israel's launch of Operation Northern Shield. Adding weight to the ultimatum, the ambassador presented a copy to Nabi Berri, Speaker of Parliament and leader of the Shiite faction in competition with Hezbollah. With us to discuss the developments with Lebanon is Dr. Eddie Cohen, an expert on Lebanon and Arab affairs. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
So let's start with Operation Northern Shield. Israel has been aware of these cross-border terror tunnels for a long time now. So why is the IDF only acting on them now?
Well, I think the IDF waited until the tunnel penetrated into Israel border. If we would tell the Hezbollah, you are digging tunnel in Lebanon, they would say this is our own affairs. I think that the IDF waited that the tunnel comes into beyond the Israel border. This is what I think. Nobody knows really why the IDF waited, because the IDF Israel knew about these tunnels years ago, and just recently it shed light on.
Now, what role, if any, will UNIFIL play, or can UNIFIL play in enforcing UN Resolution 1701?
Well, let's be clear, the 1701, no one respects this, neither Israel, neither Hezbollah. So let's not hope that the UNIFIL will make something. Israel is flying once a week in the Lebanon area. In the Lebanon, in the Hezbollah is, he's buying his arms from Iran. So this 1701, it's no one respected.
Okay, well, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and the IDF are laying the groundwork to possibly cross the border into Lebanon in order to eradicate the terror tunnels. How likely is this scenario, and what will the repercussions be?
No one wants war. Hezbollah knows very well that if there will be war, most of the Lebanese infrastructure will be destroyed. Israel also doesn't want any war, because such a war, it will be also disaster on Israel's side. Let's be frank. The Hezbollah got more than 100,000 missiles, and no one wants war. Hezbollah, his raison d'etre, his existence is because of the resistance, how he claims. He claims that Hezbollah exists in order to kill the Israelis, in order to free Palestine. Although this what he claims, he doesn't want war. Hezbollah kills thousands of Muslims, and he didn't kill any Israelis in the last 10 years. So, and no one wants war.
Mm-hmm. Now, is Israel prepared for another conflict with Hezbollah?
Yes, I'm sure that the Israel Defense Forces are very prepared. You know, we had a bad experience in 2006, but we are prepared, and we have a new order. It's everything is prepared in a war. We have to defend our countries, so we are prepared.
Mm-hmm. Now, will another war with Hezbollah see more direct Iranian involvement?
Well, no one knows now. Hezbollah didn't say anything. Maybe we will have, maybe there are some more tunnels. We discovered today, yesterday, another tunnel. So Hezbollah is keeping quiet. No one, he doesn't want to say anything about these tunnels. We don't know if someone else is involved into digging these tunnels today.
Well, thank you for speaking with us, Dr. Eddie Cohen.
Thank you very much.
The Russians are claiming that U.S. Navy anti-submarine patrol aircraft Poseidon P-8A conducted a surveillance flight near the coast of Syria, where the Russian Aerospace Forces Khmeimim Air Base and the Russian Navy base in Tartus are located. This latest development comes in the wake of Russian moves in Syria. Debka reports that as the G20 leaders gathered in Buenos Aires last week, the Russian military, on orders from the Defense Ministry in Moscow, transferred 100 S-300 missile batteries from the Masyaf area in western Syria to a Syrian military brigade stationed at Deir ez-Zur in the east, opposite U.S. base Al-Tanaf. This marks the first time since Moscow's intervention in the Syrian war nearly 3 years ago that Russia moved S-300 air defense systems over to the Syrian-Iraqi border. As recently as November 20th, Pentagon spokesman Eric Pahan remarked that Russia's S-300 air defense missile systems in Syria have no impact on the U.S. operation in the country. He added any additional arms sent into Syria only serve to escalate the situation at this point. Moscow did not send new arms to Syria, but did move its air defense missiles to the east to open a new front in close proximity to U.S. bases there. This establishes a Russian air defense shield in eastern Syria, breathing down the neck of the U.S. Air Force and coalition units moving into Syria through Iraqi airspace. Until now, Moscow had stayed out of the way of U.S. aerial operations in Syria. This past week, General Kenneth McKenzie, nominee to head U.S. Central Command, or CENTCOM, said during his confirmation hearing the U.S. Senate that the S-400, once activated, will increase the threat to our forces and our coalition partners flying over Syria. He added, "We are still working out on how it is going to be executed." With this recently deployed air defense system, Moscow now presents its first direct challenge to the U.S. military presence in eastern Syria, placing obstacles for Washington's roadmap for establishing a Syrian Kurdish ruling entity there under U.S. influence, and shields the Iranian Al-Quds brigades, the pro-Iranian Shiite militias, and Hezbollah forces stationed in Deir ez-Zor. Not least, the Russian defenses inhibit Israeli air operations against those heavy forces. Egyptian President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi has launched a grandiose project for building a new capital to be called Wedian, meaning desert valleys. Located on a 700 square kilometer site, 45 kilometers, or around 30 miles east of Cairo, and halfway to the seaport city of Suez. The new city has been designed as Egypt's future administrative, financial, and military seat of government, with 5 to 7 million inhabitants, and is tentatively billed for completion in 2040. But well ahead of the ambitious date, Debka reports that el-Sisi is planning to establish its core, the equivalent of Baghdad's Green Zone. The presidential palace, the government, military headquarters, and foreign missions are to be transferred to the new fortified site at the earliest possible date, due to 3 pressing reasons. The first is that el-Sisi wants the move to take place ahead of the next presidential election in 2020, as he no longer feels safe in Cairo. As recently as 2011, millions of Egyptians gathered in Cairo for the Arab Spring Revolt and managed to oust President Hosni Mubarak. Street mobs also overthrew President Mohamed Morsi and his Muslim Brotherhood regime in 2013. Additionally, by simultaneously relocating the presidential palace and military headquarters from Cairo, the president believes his regime will be relatively safe from any coup or revolution. Making the Egyptian military and its network of subsidiaries responsible for building the new city is designed to provide extra insurance for the regime and guarantee the loyalty of his generals. Retired Brigadier General Khalid el-Husseini Soliman recently said that the army will be at the command and control helm of the new city, and noted that the military holds a controlling interest with the housing ministry in the organization that oversees the new capital's constructions, of which Soliman is the spokesman. Under el-Sisi, the Egyptian military has ramped up its control of economic enterprise through private companies headed by retired military officers. They are awarded government and other lucrative contracts and control dozens of companies that produce everything from weapons to toll roads and more, and are exempt from taxes. Egyptian journalists uncovering the military's economic reach are silenced, as was the case of Egyptian economist Abdel Khalek Farouk, who was arrested in October 2018 for spreading false information after he alleged in a book that military-controlled governments in Cairo have kept the national wealth in the hands of the few at the expense of the many. Now for some more stories you may have missed this week. The Council of the European Union adopted a declaration this past week calling on EU member states to take measures to ensure the security of Jews and of Jewish communities and institutions in Europe. The declaration was agreed upon by the 28 EU member states and emphasizes the importance of Holocaust education and commemoration, calling on EU member states to voice their support of the International Holocaust Remembrance Alliance definition of anti-Semitism, as well as calls on the European Commission and Europol to keep a close eye on anti-Semitism online and to content calling for anti-Semitic terror. The declaration was promoted by Austrian Chancellor Sebastian Kurz, whose country currently holds the rotating presidency of the European Council, and was co-authored by the World Jewish Congress. This marks the first time that an official document calls out the need to combat the growing trend of anti-Semitism in Europe. Hundreds of Jews from around the world came to southern India's Kerala this past week to celebrate the 450th anniversary of an 818-year-old synagogue, which reopened to worshippers for the first time in 46 years. Israelis and Jews gathered at the Kadavum Bagam synagogue to pray, sing songs, and take part in a procession, welcoming a new handwritten copy of the Torah that was brought from Israel for the occasion. The synagogue closed for worship in 1972 as the majority of its members made Aliyah in the 50s and 60s. It was reportedly robbed and hit by a storm after its closure. Fewer than 5,000 Jews remain in India, though the Jewish faith has a long, deep history in the country, with the first Jewish community thought to have been established in Kerala around 70 AD.
Now it is a time. Now very few Jews are here. It should be the monument for the Israel and India relationship. And nowadays it is getting more strengthened and strengthened by all means.
It's very great for me because my father born in India and came to Israel about 55 years ago, and it's very wonderful to see this.
That's all for this week's edition of the Debka File. We'll be back with you next week for more exclusive news, insight, and analysis. Make sure to check out our Facebook page at Israel News and our website. I'm Lidarga Velazi. Thanks for watching.